Welcome to the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm Amy, wife, mother of two and devoted homemaker. Join me on this journey as we explore the beauty of slow and simple living, where life unfolds at its own unhurried pace. I'll take you through my experiences of slowing down, tending to our allotment plot, finding joy in the little things and making the most of our small home. Together we'll learn to live in harmony with the ever-changing seasons, discovering the magic that lies in embracing the present moment. So let's embark on this enriching adventure towards a more intentional and fulfilling life. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here today, and I am diving into something which I find really interesting. Now, I'm not promising that I'm going to be coherent on this matter. This is more likely just going to be ramblings inside my brain. But today I want to talk about balancing home life with being an entrepreneur. Now, I have been an entrepreneur for almost my entire adult life, let's be honest. I started my own business when I was 21 years old, and I have been doing something similar ever since. And what I basically mean with that is I started using blogging as a business tool from the age of 21, and it has ebbed and flowed and morphed into many, many different things. And when I got pregnant with my son, when I got pregnant with my son, who's my second, I decided that I wasn't going to go back to doing the things that I used to do, which was personal brand strategy, social media management, copywriting and all of that stuff. But instead, I decided to use the skills that I have and that I have been using for super long time to create a business all of my own. And that's where the Slow Living Collective came in. And it has been ebbing and flowing and growing ever since. So that's where I am at, and today I want to talk about how I balance being home, being a homemaker, being an urban homesteader, a home educator, with being an entrepreneur. And here's a pro tip. I don't always think I get it right. Okay guys, let's dive into the episode. Are you ready to slow down and embrace simplicity even in the midst of life's imperfections? I've got just the thing for you. Discover my free guide, Imperfect Slow Living, designed to help you find peace and simplicity in your everyday life, no matter what it looks like. Slow down and breathe, unwind and rediscover calm, no matter how hectic life gets. Simplify your life one step at a time with practical tips. You don't have to be perfect to enjoy the beauty of slow living. It's time to make a change. Visit theslowlivingcollective.com/slowliving to download your free guide today. Start your journey towards a more deliberate and intentional life. Slow living isn't about perfection. It's about finding peace in the imperfections of life. Download your guide and embrace a simpler, slower and more meaningful life. That's theslowlivingcollective.com/slowliving. Today, I want to talk about balancing home life, home educating, urban homesteading, and entrepreneurship. I want to talk about how you balance home with being an entrepreneur. And I think whether you are an entrepreneur yourself or whether you are maybe working in a 9-to-5 role, whatever work might look like for you, if you are maybe a mother or a wife or a homemaker, wherever you're coming from, whatever that looks like for you, I think today's episode might be helpful because I just want to dive into how we balance these multiple roles in life. And so often when we talk about slow and simple living, we talk about slowing down and simplifying and life not being as stressful. And I think it's really important to highlight balance. And actually, I'm going to say something a little controversial. I don't believe balance exists. I don't believe true balance is absolutely possible. And I say that because I feel like I wear multiple hats. I feel like, sometimes I am a cracking mother. Sometimes I'm a cracking wife. Sometimes my kitchen looks the best and I feel like the best urban homesteader ever. Sometimes the house is in order and I feel like a great homemaker. And sometimes my business is thriving and I feel like an amazing entrepreneur. But all of those things never happen together. They never, ever happen together. And sometimes I drop the ball in one area. But as long as my theory on this is, as long as I don't consistently drop the ball in one area all the time, then everything has balance. And that's what I want to talk about when I talk about balance. I don't believe that, we're ever going to achieve this sort of utopia of balance. I don't think balance is possible day in, day out. But what we can do is focus on those different areas. So as long as I'm not consistently dropping the ball in being a good wife, for example, as long as I'm not consistently dropping the ball there, then that relationship will continue to thrive. As long as I'm not continually dropping the ball in the area of homemaking, then my home will continue to thrive. But it is a balancing act. And I think it's really important to sort of dive into how all of these different facets of my life work and how I manage to find some sort of quote unquote balance. And yeah, it's not always possible. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it feels chaotic, and everything in between. So, juggling. And that's what I really think it is. I think it's juggling. I think that, so often and when I say we, I mean society in general, we sort of divide women in particular. And I know most of you listening, when I dive into my analytics, I know most of you are women, and I know most of you are around my age. And so, that's obviously the perspective that I'm coming from today as well. It's just that, and I think we always just miss the whole point. And that whole point is that we are all mothers all of the time. And yeah, it's really, really, I don't know. It's just complicated, isn't it? Because we are mothers all the time, whether we stay at home with our children or whether we choose to work or whether we work outside the home because it's a necessity. We are still all mothers 100% of the time. And it's society that doesn't appreciate that in the slightest. Not at all. You're expected to, when you go to maybe a 9-to-5 job, and not all, this is a big sweeping statement, but we are just expected to forget that we are mothers for 8 hours of the day, and that's just not realistic. Our children might be in school, or they might be with grandparents, or in childcare, or in wraparound care. They are somewhere when they are not being taken care of by us as parents. They are somewhere, and our worry and thoughts and life with them doesn't stop there. It just doesn't, and society doesn't always necessarily allow for that. And I think that's a really frustrating, but hopefully, I always hope that things will change. I don't have much faith in general, but I do hope that things will change. And so the first thing I really want to dive into is home life and home education. And these two things I feel like go hand in hand together. And now I know not all of you have decided to home educate your own children, but I hope this segment will be helpful to you to just maybe help you see how being at home and home educating the children really works. And I think there's this massive misconception that because it's called home education, that we are home all of the time. And that couldn't be less true for my family and a lot of other home educating families as well. I feel fairly comfortable saying that a lot of home educating families are not home Monday to Friday, 9 till 3. That is not what home education is. Home education is just living life. It's just living life side by side and learning through that. We don't have set times where we are sitting down. We don't have set times where we are doing work. And this looks different for all home educators. Some people decide to have a more school at home approach or like a hybrid thing. I personally, because my children are still very young, I'm just feeling it out and finding out what works best for me, what works best for the children in the way they learn, and just going from there. And I dare say things will ebb and flow and look different as we go along. And so, being home with the children is actually not being at home. It's not being at home at all. We spend a lot of our time out and about, whether that's at home ed groups or seeing friends or family. We might be at the library or a museum or at the park or at our allotment. We are just living life. And I feel like home education for us really aligns with that slow living lifestyle. It aligns with this idea that we don't have to always be on the go. We don't always have to be busy. We don't always have to be, doing things at a certain time. And, I know for when you're working a 9-to-5 job, like, it's not that easy to think outside of that box, because you do have to be there at 9 o'clock, and you have to be there till 5 o'clock, and you don't have the option of being like, well, that doesn't really align with my slow living lifestyle, so I'm not going to do that. So, as I always say in these episodes, there are still ways that you can implement slow and simple living, even when you have to do these certain things. I really do appreciate that. I come from a place where I feel like I'm very privileged in being able to say, like, oh, well, I don't have to follow the rat race. I don't have to go with the flow of it. I can do what I want, and I am very privileged in that, and I acknowledge that. And a lot of that comes from the way we set up our life. I think I've said in previous episodes, it was always a goal of ours to live in this way, and it wasn't something that we just did overnight, and it took a lot of hard work. But like this whole episode is about, I still do paid work, and I'm very excited about that. So I appreciate there is a big degree of privilege in the fact that I haven't had to work. And that is definitely not the case for everybody. But I know for me, I really want this all to succeed, because it's something that excites me so much. And so I do appreciate that being at home and home education is something that I'm very, very lucky to do. And I come across people all the time that say, oh, I wish we could home educate, but I have to work. And, it's not my personal experience, but I know there are so many people who home educate and still work a job, because education doesn't just exist between 9 and 3 every day. But, I appreciate there are barriers to that as well. So like I was saying, we are not home all the time. And so we very much focus our days on having slow mornings. Slow mornings are really important to us. Something that's really, really, really important to us is that we are able to give our children and ourselves the ability to wake up in our own time, to take the morning as it comes. And just, some mornings people are tired, and some mornings people are grumpy, and we don't have to force ourselves to do anything. We can take that time to relax. And it's something I've always wanted to really embed in their education, is that it's really important to rest. And sometimes rest, if it's the only thing you do, that is perfectly acceptable, because I don't want them to be 30 years of age and having to learn how to slow down and how to relax, because they've been so infiltrated by this always on culture that we have. And so I do think home education really aligns with slow living, but that's not to say that a school education doesn't align with slow living as well. There are so many ways that you can implement slow living around the necessities, because let's be honest, for some people, home education isn't a choice they can make. And for some people, it's not a choice they even want to make. The school system is perfectly acceptable choice. And while it's not a choice I choose for my own children, it is a perfectly valid choice for anybody else that wishes to choose it. And so it's difficult, I know, when someone like me is talking and saying, well, these are the elements of slow living I'm able to implement into our life because we home educate. And you might be sitting there thinking like, well, I can't home educate, or I don't want to home educate. How do I still implement those things into my life? And it's it's just going to take a little bit more balance, like this whole episode is about. And it's just, firstly, understanding and accepting and just making peace with yourself over the fact that there are these necessities that we can't get out of, whether that be a job, whether that be the times of school. If that's a system that you have opted into and, you are happy with that system, then, you are just going to have to find those little sparks of joy around the outside of that. And so it might be still being able to have elements of a slow morning. What is it about the morning that is super stressful? Now, I know getting kids ready and out the door is not the easiest of tasks sometimes. So I understand why everybody gets very stressed in the mornings. And listen, I am no exception. We have an early home ed group on a Friday morning. It is at a time, we have to leave home at a time when usually we're only just like stumbling downstairs and I'm getting my coffee and, I have to be out the door. We're all dressed in our full waterproofs. My son is like off to spend some time with his grandparents while I take my daughter. And so often I am the stressed, frazzled parent, like just the other day, when we were going, I was getting myself in a mood because, things weren't right. People were taking their socks off and, I've got a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old and it's stressful. Everybody's dressed and ready to go. And then someone's taken their socks off, someone's taken their jumper off and it's like, we have to go. And, I guess if you're a parent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it is stressful. And I am not immune to that stress just because I'm here telling you about a slow morning or a simple life, or because I home educate. I am not immune to those things. They still happen to me. And sometimes I just have to breathe, reboot, and just let it go. And you know what? We have a great time when we're there. So sometimes I just have to just live through it. And so balancing being at home and home education and being an entrepreneur it's not always easy. I don't know that I even have found the balance, to be honest. And so, what I wanted to sort of get across throughout this episode is that I don't think we're always going to get it right. I don't think we're always going to feel like we've done the right thing and that it's even working. And when you're someone like me who, I would, if I have to define myself, I will define myself as a homemaker. I will define myself as a home educator. I will sometimes call myself an urban homesteader. I'm very passionate about the idea of urban homesteading. I have said a number of times that I don't want to raise animals. That is not for me. So urban homesteading is actually, as far as I'm concerned, where it ends. You're not going to see me get a dairy cow or a chicken. Certainly not because I currently live in a flat. But the goal is obviously to move on from here, which I've discussed before. But I'm not looking to be a farmer or be a homesteader. That's not what I'm looking for. I love so much of the whole urban homestead movement and how to, doing things like food preservation and baking stuff from scratch, all of like the things that you would consider a homesteader does, without the things like raising animals, no dairy, no cows, no meat, like all of those things is not for me. And if it's for you, that's fantastic, but it's not what I'm looking for. I don't want to be bound by like that sort of thing in my life. And so all of those things I feel are very attached to the slow and simple living aesthetic, I guess. And sometimes that's what it can be. It can be an aesthetic. And I think we have to dive deeper into how we are implementing those things. And so I have these like two sides, I guess, to my life. And it's the during the day me that's maybe I'm baking sourdough or doing something with sourdough discard, or just generally baking bread or making jam, making, I don't know, yogurt, all of these things that I feel is just my urban homestead kitchen side. And then, I'm also growing my own food on the allotment and gardening, and I'm at home with my children, which I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful for that opportunity. And, I get to home educate them, which is something that we're so passionate about. But then I have this entrepreneur side of me, and that is where I don't know how to find that balance, if I'm honest. And some days I feel incredibly lucky that I am able to work so sporadically, and I am able to sit and record this podcast, for example. But what it is I have to take that time where I see it, and it's not necessarily scheduled for me, and it's something I'm still working on. But like I said, all the way through this episode so far, it's that idea that I don't think there is such a thing as balance. I think sometimes I get it right, and I think sometimes I get it really wrong. And sometimes I am upstairs all weekend because I've got this idea and I'm hyper focused on it. And, suddenly I'm batch working and I'm doing all of my email newsletters, my blog posts, I'm getting podcasts recorded and scheduled and planned, and but I haven't spent any time with my family that weekend. And on the one hand, it's really important for me because I am home all the time, in the sense of, being home, and not doing a outside of the home job. I am home educating, I am homemaking, I am with everybody all the time. And so for me, it is really important to step away from that sometimes and just breathe and reset myself. And what I do in terms of the podcast, the blog, how I make money is something that I love. I'm so passionate about it. But I hope you can see there that actually I sometimes lose the balance, because yes, it's important for me to take that break away from the children sometimes. I love them dearly, of course. I don't know where we always feel like we have to justify that, but I am with them 24/7. I mean, they even sleep in my bed. I am with them 24/7. So taking time away and focusing on the entrepreneurial side of me is super, super important. But when I do that, when I take those weekends, when I am not able to sort of split my focus as much and I'm really in my work, then sometimes I might not be spending as much time with my husband because he is the other caregiver. Have you ever dreamed of creating a blog that not only inspires but also brings you an income and fulfillment? Well, the dream is closer than you think. I want to introduce you to Create Your Blog Dream, the comprehensive blogging course from Lisa Bass of the successful blog Farmhouse on Boone, designed to make your blog aspirations a reality. In this transformative course, you'll learn about crafting a unique brand identity that really tells your story. You'll master the art of setting up and optimizing your blog for absolute success. Learn powerful strategies to expand your blog's reach and engagement, and uncover the secrets to turning your passion into profit. And that's not all. You'll be exclusively sent resources to ensure your success. You'll receive a weekly and monthly content planner to help you stay organised and maintain a streamlined content schedule. You'll also get 50 blog post thought starters to help keep those creative juices flowing, with idea boosters and a blog post checklist to help you maximise the impact of each post from creation to promotion. Imagine having the guidance and tools you need to transform your passion into a profession, become your own boss, and turn your blog dream into reality. Don't hesitate. The time to make your dream blog is now. So to get started today, visit theslowlivingcollective.com/blogdream. I mean, it's hilarious. I just had to pause this episode because I'm recording this on a Saturday and my daughter just came upstairs, and, there are two doors between me and the hallway upstairs. But, she's 4 years old. And so she came in, and, it is balance and not necessarily a good balance. And I think that's what I'm trying to get get across, I guess, that sometimes we can't find that balance. But the most important thing is that we, I guess, just remember, like I said at the beginning of this episode, just remember to not always drop the ball in the same area multiple times, because that's when that area will start to feel the effects of it. So I am trying, as we all are. The thing I find difficult when it comes to sort of the entrepreneurial side of me is really that I love it so much, and I'm so passionate, and my brain is always ticking, and I'm getting new ideas, and I find a lot of frustration in that because I don't have access to be able to just stop what I'm doing and create something. So it might be that I'm, out and about with the kids during the week, and suddenly I have a great idea for a freebie, and there's the stroke of inspiration, and by the time I actually get around to doing it, the stroke of inspiration is gone. And so that I find quite difficult. And I think something that I am getting better at is just having my laptop around in the kitchen. And so I'm better able then to, if I do get a stroke of inspiration and maybe the children are playing, we live in a very open plan place. So, the kids are playing in the living room and I'm just in the kitchen, like we're right next to each other, because we have open plan area, and also we live in a very small home. And so I am sometimes able to just sit with my coffee and do a little bit of work while they're playing with Barbies or whatever it is. So it does work, but sometimes not so much. And it's just, like I say, it's just finding a way to muddle my way through, because it's not always easy. It's not always easy at all. And I think that I don't think there's an answer. So I guess what I'd love you guys to take away from this episode is that whether you're home, whether you are home educating, whether you're a homemaker, or whether you work outside the home, whether you work in a 9 to 5, whether you're an entrepreneur, whatever life looks like for you, we all are sort of stuck, struggling to find this balance. And I want to tell you that give yourself permission to realize that maybe that balance doesn't exist. Maybe, just maybe, it's about just making sure that we don't drop the ball in the same area multiple times. Sometimes we're going to be good mothers. Sometimes we're going to be great wives. Sometimes we're going to be absolutely blinding at our job. But while we are being absolutely incredible at something, we are probably letting something else fall away. And it's just really important that whatever that thing that's falling away isn't the same thing every time. I wouldn't be able to home educate if I was consistently dropping the ball in that area. I wouldn't be able to do it. It wouldn't be fair on my children. It wouldn't be fair on their education. I wouldn't be able to, be in a good relationship if I was consistently dropping the ball, by being a good partner to my husband. And so it's just finding that balance across the board. I don't think it's about finding a balance that everything is going to work swimmingly all the time. I think it's about finding the balance of where things are going to be good and great, and where they're maybe not so good and great, and just making sure that it's all ebbing and flowing. So I hope that was helpful. Just some musings from my brain. It is my greatest pleasure to be able to drop into your earbuds. It is my greatest pleasure to be able to do this podcast, do my blog, serve my mailing list, create freebies, create workshops, all of that stuff. I'm so grateful. Like, being an entrepreneur is something that brings me so much joy, and I'm so grateful for it. But it does come with these ebbs and flows of things being great, things being good, things being a bit iffy. And so if that just resonates with you, I would love to hear from you. You can find me at my Instagram account, which is at theslowlivingcollective.com. Come and give me a hello. Come and tell me that I am not the only one juggling all the things. I know I'm not the only one juggling all the things, but come and find me and make me feel good about myself. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I hope it was helpful to you. Don't forget to leave a review and a rating, because it's so helpful to podcasters like me. It helps other people who are looking for similar content be able to find me and just find the words from this podcast if they need it. And that's all I want to do, is find the people that need to hear the words. So thank you again so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Slow Living Collective podcast. I hope you found inspiration in our shared journey towards a life that is mindful, deliberate, and rich with meaning. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing and don't forget to leave a review. Your feedback is absolutely invaluable and it helps other people find the show as well. If you'd like to connect with me online, you can find me on Instagram at The Slow Living Collective. And if you're searching for a supportive community of like-minded individuals to exchange ideas with, don't forget to explore the Slow Living Collective membership at theslowlivingcollective.com. There you'll discover a wealth of resources, help, support, guidance, courses, ebooks, videos, and so much more to assist you on your journey towards a slower and more simpler life. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am truly grateful for your presence and I look forward to our next episode. Until then, may your days be filled with intention and purpose. Take care and I will see you in the next episode.